Before she forgot whether she had already told us that story, before she asked how Brett Favre had played that Sunday despite the fact he had retired years ago, before she ceased to care about her eccentric clothing options, or about her margin of victory in cutthroat games of Scrabble, before her doctor told my mother she couldn't continue living this way, and before my mother convinced her mother to uproot a life primarily spent in Illinois and travel 400-plus miles to Omaha into an assisted living facility before all of that, Patricia Rush was my grandmother. She hugged my sister and I like the flood was coming every time we left her apartment. She never missed a birthday or sent a holiday card to my mailbox late. If she were still around, she would be one of the more than 5 million people in this country suffering from Alzheimer's, the 6th leading cause of death in the US. Strip away the harrowing stories just like hers, and you'll find some very expensive numbers underneath. By 2050, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention projects treatment for Alzheimer's and dementias, of which there are more than 100, will cost the nation in excess of $1 trillion annually. Last year, $236 billion was spent on caring for those with Alzheimer's, including $46 billion out of pocket. That's like 100 times what the newest Star Wars film grossed at the box office. And any way you dice it, it's much more than the average family can afford. So let's start with what we know. Alzheimer's is a degenerative brain disease. How many of you know someone suffering from it? You're not alone. It's the most common form of dementia. When neurons in parts of the brain involved in cognitive function are damaged or destroyed, this decline affects a person's ability to perform everyday activities, like cooking and cleaning. Eventually, memory recollection, walking. The disease is ultimately fatal, and we currently have no cure. What many families have learned the hard way, and to be clear, it is always the hard way with this disease, is that relationships, just like someone's mental state, can decay. Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging, its official website states, but it's tough to counter that that notion isn't rapidly losing its luster. 1 in 3 seniors die with it. From 2000 to 2013, deaths from the disease spiked more than 70%. Of the 10 leading causes of death in the US, it is the only one that we cannot prevent, cure, or even slow down. Consider this. In the early 1900s, Auguste Deter was the first person diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Today, we still couldn't save her. More disheartening, however, is we still couldn't provide her ways to mitigate what is going to happen. It takes a little more than 1 minute for a new person in this country to be diagnosed. Since I started speaking, 3 people found out. Within the next 35 years, projections show it will take 33 seconds, half as long for new diagnoses. The question then becomes, while researchers continue to search for a much-needed cure and preventative measures, how do we take care of those who so desperately need it? What can we do to provide the highest quality of life? When my grandmother was in the process of moving, her largest reservations were losing her sense of home and her sense of independence. This is hardly uncommon. If you spent your entire life living independently in some capacity, maybe even living in the same home for decades, you're acclimated to that process. Normal, to you, is being dependent on oneself, being surrounded by objects recognized as one's own. The most common form of practice is to send those suffering to nursing homes, which have been linked to issues of patient mistreatment and low levels of morale for decades. Not just in the US either. Additionally, those suffering are often boxed away indoors. A report from the Dutch Alzheimer's Association found that nursing home residents in the Netherlands go outside for an average of just 96 seconds per day. But what if there was a place where those suffering from severe dementia could safely live out the remainder of their days, surrounded by those going through similar tribulations, in a place that actually looks and feels like home? There is. Located minutes from downtown Amsterdam is Hogeweyk, or as neurosurgeon Sanjay Gupta dubbed it, Dementia Village. It sounds a lot like Hogwarts, and although it does share many of the same letters, it is not, in fact, the school of witchcraft and wizardry. You see, Hogwarts is a fictional British school of magic, and Hogeweyk is reality. And also the people there are much older than teenagers. Hogeweyk is a government-funded home offering nursing home care to those in the last stages of dementia. It has the same budget as every nursing home in the country that caters to those with the disease. When Yvonne van Amerongen's father died, her first thought was, thank God he didn't have to go to a nursing home. At the time, she was a manager in a nursing home. But she put the plan into action. Her team considered what would be an acceptable offer for family members, friends, and themselves if presented with the unenviable task. They looked at stress reactors, researched the clinical aspects of dementia, and shed what was considered conventional wisdom at the time in terms of care. What began as an experimental ward in an old nursing home in 1993 became a village by 2009. Wijk is Old Dutch for neighborhood, so it's only right that Hogeweyk feels like one. It includes all of the traditional amenities of a Dutch village: a supermarket, a theater, a pub, a post office, and a restaurant. Clubs are available and promoted. There are no nondescript buildings carrying the scent of a medical cabinet. There are no blinding lights fit for a TV shoot, and there are no polished floors you can view your reflection in. This is a village, and 150 residents live there. And they are residents, never referred to as patients. Family members can visit whenever they please. Some visit every day. The traditional confining nature of nursing homes is jettisoned in favor of a more physical-friendly environment. Residents are encouraged to communicate with one another, to rely on one another, to be a part of something together. Confusion is often arresting for those with severe dementia, which is why Hogeweyk works diligently to reduce it wherever possible. For example, finances are often a source of confusion for the elderly, which is why they're removed entirely from the equation. Everything in town is free. Staff members wander the town in street clothes. You won't see scrubs or medical-type clothing. There are no white coats. They hold myriad occupations within the village, too. They'll help you check out at the grocery store. They'll give you your ticket at the post office. And they'll help with meal preparation in the home. There are full-time nurse practitioners and 140 volunteers on staff, all of whom have received specific training on dementia care. While traversing the grounds, you may feel a sense of uncertainty about whether someone is a resident, a family member, or staff. And perhaps that's the point. The homes are stylized around the time period when residents' short-term memories stop properly functioning. So you'll find homes that actually look cut out of the 1950s and 1960s, furnished down to the tablecloths. They are a mashup of family input and research, designed to make residents feel as though they're sleeping at home. What about safety? The Alzheimer's Association found that 6 out of 10 people will wander or become lost. At Hogeweyk, there's one door in and out of the village, and it's staffed 24 hours a day. Its website posits that Hogeweyk ultimately is a cultural shift in dementia care, from the medical system to the social relational system, from the institute to normal surroundings and to normal life. This is a place that embraces community. The act of engaging in community isn't just about promoting better health care. It's about developing a more personable and effective way of treating disease and disorder. At traditional nursing homes, oftentimes those with the most severe mental health issues end up being isolated, so that less severe cases can benefit from resources. However, a report from the journal Nature Neuroscience found that isolation actually reduces the production of myelin, a fiber that maintains our nerve cells, meaning these segregating treatments may only make mental illness worse. So let's see some results. Residents experience better cognitive and functional capacity, reduced aggressive behavior, and improved social involvement. An increase in fresh air, daylight, and exercise led to a decrease in aggression. Staff members experienced more autonomy, reduced stress, and reduced physical pain. Residents and family members graded Hogeweyk extremely high in overall satisfaction. Additionally, residents require fewer medications. Staff members noticed in 1993 that more than 50% of residents were prescribed antipsychotics. By 2013, that number was 16%. By 2015, it was 8%. There have been almost no bedridden residents since the village first opened. Furthermore, as Sanjay Gupta reported for CNN, residents not only require fewer medications, they eat better, live longer, and experience more joy. The innumerable studies reinforcing how many dementia patients feel lonely or isolated, juxtaposed to Hogeweyk's considerable success with their residents, calls into question how much of the symptom is a result of the disease and how much of it is a result of how we treat it. Now, for the downside, cost is one of the greatest barriers to making self-contained model villages the standard in dementia care. It would be extremely difficult to implement in a non-socialized healthcare system, which is why in the US, a facility like Hogeweyk might be impossible for the foreseeable future. But that hasn't stopped a host of other countries from sending representatives to the Dutch village in the hopes of installing something similar. This is the only facility of its kind in the world. And perhaps what it's showing us is that we still have a ways to go if we truly want to provide the kind of comprehensive care those suffering deserve. Hogeweyk has not found a cure for dementia, but it's found a path that is changing ideas of how to take care of those who can no longer take care of themselves. Sometimes, it truly takes a village. Thank you.